At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
I'm doing everything I can. Now stop calling me Shirley.
The center has to be at least 3 times bigger than this.
All right, it's Sincerely Unqualified. Today we have a classics episode. We haven't done one in a while. We've been going newer movies, but we have a 1980 movie, a 1995 movie, 2 generations of SNL stars in these movies. We're doing Tommy Boy and Caddyshack.
Couldn't be a better combination. They may not have a lot to do with one another, but honestly, we're going to say that right off the bat. Like, they may not have a lot to do with one another, but they're 2 generations of SNL cast members, and they kill it in their respective generations, both on SNL and on these movies. I gotta say, these are 2 incredible movies that hold up really well. I mean, just from rewatch perspective, Caddyshack, you can't get enough of. I feel like if you've seen it, you know it, you quote it. If it wasn't in your household growing up, maybe it will be after you watch it for the first time. I don't know. There's some stuff in there that just stands the test of time.
Yeah, both movies are so timeless. I mean, obviously, one movie came out more recently. Caddyshack's already 41 years old now.
This is crazy.
Yeah, that's the thing. These movies do not have much to do with each other. I mean, they're just our favorite. They're our favorite older movies for the most part.
Yeah.
So that it's our podcast, and we're doing what we want.
We do as we please. Okay. Maybe we wanted to put them together. Maybe they don't. It's like, you know.
I think we were talking about it after watching Bo Burnham's special and The Big Sick being more emotional. We were just like, you know what? I think this has depressed me for multiple days now. So let's watch something lighthearted and fun. A nice classic, a nice warm blanket in terms of a comedy movie. And
we needed a little bit. We needed to take that, you know, that warm blanket of depression off of us and get a little bit of happiness in there.
I would say the warm blanket are these movies, but no.
Oh yeah, no, there's a little bit.
Depression is pretty warm.
I mean, it's okay.
We're not getting into that.
I'm thinking about it from the Big Mouth perspective, where it's just that giant cat that's like, "Hey, lay here for a little bit. Okay, you're gonna be here for a while, honey. Just get comfortable." It's like
we're not talking about that. We are positive people. We are talking
positive
Caddyshack.
mindset.
We're talking Tommy Boy. But before we start talking about those movies, we need to let you know that summer's coming. Are you ready to unveil your beach bod? You're in luck. Our friends at Manscaped just launched their 4th generation performance package, which includes the Lawnmower 4.0. So you complement your dad bod or 6-pack with a trim from the leaders in male grooming. The sun is shining and calling your name, fellas. Join the more than 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped and get ready for Hot Guy Summer. Hot Guy Summer. They didn't run this by Chet Hanks.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
So
I don't think they need to.
No. Go to Manscaped for 20% or manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping with the code unqualified. So we've been with Manscaped for a little bit now. I can barely remember the last time that I had any trouble shaving down there, but we've all had stories. Everyone's had a little trouble down there. A few nicks and scratches.
More than a few. And if you're in that kind of situation, if it's a war zone down there whenever you go, I would say get Manscaped. You want to look good over the summer when you're at the pool, when you're at anywhere, really. You want to make sure that your body looks good, that your body, you know, whether it's a dad bod, whether you're 6-pack, whether you're right in the middle, like probably me and Kev are, you know, not quite 6-pack, not quite dad bod.
I'm still doing the Kumail thing. Gotta keep bulking up.
We got to get on that post-Big Sick diet where he's now a superhero.
Exactly.
But even if that's not in yet, you can do one thing for yourself. You can make sure the downstairs looks nice. That's something you can control. It's fully in your control. Make sure you handle it with Manscaped.
Even if you can't grow muscles, you can have a fantastic looking dick and balls.
Exactly.
So get 20% off and free shipping with the code unqualified at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with the code unqualified at manscaped.com. Escape the shrubs and weeds this summer and shine with Manscaped. So,
yes, sir.
We'll start out. We're going to talk Caddyshack. We're going older movie first. We'll see. We'll talk about which one we think is better. There's no doubt that in terms of Rotten Tomatoes scores, the critics of who we hate.
Yeah, we're not of grammar guy.
How about that?
Big grammar guy.
73% on Rotten Tomatoes for Caddyshack. 87% audience. Most people like it. So it's a Harold Ramis movie, and it was written by Bill Murray's brother, Brian Doyle Murray, Harold Ramis himself, and Douglas Kenney, who was doing National Lampoon stuff. So we have three, obviously, very interlinked people writing this movie, people who have a stake in the movie, and that's why I think it ended up being as great as it was, honestly.
Yeah, I agree. I think the writing played into it. I think the times were a huge thing, like whether it was the Lampoon craze or everything that was going on at the time. Like, this fuel of comedic writing was, I mean, everything was hitting at that point. I feel like that was really the time where I think everything started to come to the surface, and this movie almost, I don't want to say sparked anything, because it's not like I've looked into the exact history of comedies and everything like that, but I think that this was definitely a time period where things started to happen and things started to move, and the writers, whether they were doing blow, not doing blow, whatever they may have been doing at the time, there was definitely this a lot of blow, but there was definitely this comedy craze that was going on, and we got some of the best stuff that, I mean, to this day holds up. There's some movies that fade away after a year, 2 years, but there's these comedies from this era that you look back and you go, you draw inspiration from it, and it's awesome.
Yeah, it's insane thinking about how it's 41 years old now.
Yeah.
Like, that is so long ago at this point, but it still holds up, I think, due to the acting performances, due to the writing. Sure, there's like a little old humor in there, probably charge, guys looking at girls, that's sick. Yeah, we get it. It's a product of the time. Something that I when you were talking about the comedy craze, 1980 this movie came out. That's the same year as Airplane. So when I think of 1980 and I think comedy, I actually do think Airplane.
Really?
So I think of the satire, I think of the very quirky, those kind of lines, and I'm saying it as a compliment to Caddyshack, actually, because I don't think that this is in the same vein. It almost seems like Caddyshack came out kind of in like the 90s. It seems like an older kind of movie to me, or a newer kind of movie.
Yeah, I agree. It's almost surprising that it came out in the 80s, because you're like, holy shit, like this came out so early.
Too.
Yeah,
if it was a year earlier, it was 79.
That's how time works.
That's
definitely how time works.
That's definitely how it works.
And if it came out 2 years earlier, it would be in 1978, which is crazy. Really? Yeah, I mean, I got to check the math on that one, but I think we're right on the nail. Yeah,
pretty sure.
But it is crazy that you're like, holy shit, 1980. Because even when I think about it, maybe late 80s, early 90s for me is when initially I'm thinking, but it was almost ahead of its time, because you watch Airplane, and Airplane, I would say, is an incredible movie, but it's so almost more dated in its rewatchability, and it's just more of a staple of the time, where Caddyshack is more timeless.
Yeah. I just think that there's a very specific type of humor that Airplane has, and when I think of that, I think 80s. Immediately.
Yeah,
when I think of Caddyshack, the first thing that comes to my mind isn't the time period. However, that's the thing I would say. Like, it's the Airplane, I would say, is just, it's such 80s comedy that's hilarious. Caddyshack, I just think, holy crap, what a great movie, great cast, the absolute stars at the peak of their careers. And we can go through the cast a little, and then it's for our breakdown section. I think we just talk about each one of their performances separately, because this movie has a narrative and it has a through line, but to me, this movie almost seems like it's just like, and honestly, both of these movies, actually, they're just kind of like showcases for these people.
Yeah. Like, I will say about Caddyshack before we get into the cast, it's fluid, but it's also not. And I want to say that as a compliment, and almost like an early kind of bit heavy movie, but also not, because there's a lot of things in Caddyshack that could have been at the beginning, at the end, or whatever, that don't necessarily advance the plot per se, but they're just there. Like, when the bishop goes and plays his round of golf, like does that advance the plot whatsoever? No, not in any way, shape, or form. Is it hilarious? Yes,
absolutely.
Like, it could have been anywhere.
I think that, especially, so I watched this when I was younger a bunch. Like, this was a big movie in my childhood home, and I think that I used to think it was more disjointed than it actually was. Like, rewatching, I kind of saw the through line. I saw the narrative more, probably just from being older, I'm sure.
Yeah, I agree, and it was very similar for me. And the one thing I will say while watching is, I don't know how long it took to film, but I feel like Michael O'Keefe, who was Danny Noonan, I don't know if it was me just rewatching or anything. I almost felt like he was played by 3 different people throughout the movie because I saw him at different points. I'm like, is this a different person with the hair and everything like that? Like whether it was he was styling his hair differently, I was like, is that the same guy? It took me a second to be like, did they like on the fly replace this guy with a lookalike? I had to just keep looking. It was definitely weird to see, like, because at the beginning you see him as this like different hairstyle, and I know it can make such a difference whether it be the lighting or anything like that. But it took me a second. I was like, am I sure that's the same person?
Yeah, I don't think that they were too worried about continuity in this movie. Yeah. I think they had other things to worry about. Well, we'll talk about that during Inexclusive exclusives. But so we'll just run through the cast quick, and then we'll start breaking down each of the big players' performances. So we have Chevy Chase as Ty Webb, Rodney Dangerfield as Al Cervic, Bill Murray as Carl Spackler, Ted Knight as Judge Smails, and Michael O'Keefe as Danny Noonan. So those are, I would say, the big people. I think we start out like, do you want to go Bill Murray? You want to go Chevy Chase? Like,
either one. I say we go Bill Murray first because that's its own plot in itself. Like he's in the main plot, I would say, a couple times, like when he's with Chevy Chase and they're bouncing back and forth. Other than that, he's literally just by himself. Yeah. Like he's just Bill Murray versus this gopher, which is, I think if you remember one thing from the movie, and it's one of the most iconic things to come out of the movie, it's Bill Murray versus gopher.
Yeah. I don't even think of the gopher when I think of Bill Murray's character, which is funny because he is so intertwined with that. Like, that's his thing the whole movie. He's just supposed to kill this gopher. But I think of the weird side performances that are just so ridiculous and so perfectly Bill Murray that he delivers all these lines so well. He plays this extremely odd character, which, sure, there's always a bit of strangeness to a Bill Murray character. But this is like heightened. It's not like he's playing a normal person at all.
This is the most hyperbolized crazy person that we've seen Bill Murray play, because the rest of them, you're like, that could actually be a person. Even when we're like Life Aquatic, like he's a crazy person, but that still could be a person.
Yeah, like Groundhog Day. What about Bob? Like, what about Bob? He plays a little eccentric character, but yeah, it's at least more like Bill Murray. This is like a crazy person.
He's a crazy person. Old women who walking by him and just bark for me.
You wore green so you could hide. Which is also, that's what's funny. I think in the terms of the 1980 comedy. So I was watching this with my fiance, and she was she kind of made a comment. It's just, a nature of the time thing, but it's kind of funny how they had Bill Murray's character like have an interest in old ladies for some reason. Even if what you said about him wasn't great, but I think it's almost one of those things. It's supposed to be a good humor. They're supposed to be older ladies, but
just thinking of it like, oh, what if he likes old women? Like, let's do it.
Yeah, like Chevy Chase, he's gonna be the womanizer. Bill Murray, weird. Make him talk about old ladies saying you wore green so you could hide.
It works so well, though. I mean, it's just like, it's not something you would necessarily think of as like, okay, this groundskeeper, he's into super old ladies and he's fighting a gopher. Like, you pitch that to somebody and you're like, you're a psychopath.
Well,
what is going to happen
I think
here?
You pitch that to someone and you're like, that's just weird. And then you say, but it's Bill Murray. And you're like,
but at the time, he could take that on. You're like, who do we get for that? Bill Murray. Like, I feel like
Bill Murray makes it okay.
Bill Murray walks so that Bill Hader could run. And I'm sticking to that because I think if this movie was cast today, Bill Hader would be that character.
I think Bill Hader could play that character. I don't know if they would cast him as it, though.
You don't think so?
I think that he's too, like... Well, I guess we were just talking about Bill Murray plays normal characters. I know what you're saying. I definitely know what you're saying.
Height of SNL, Bill Hader. Like, not now Bill Hader, not Barry Bill Hader. I think height of SNL, 2008, playing Stefan Bill Hader
he would
rip this character.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He would rip this character. I totally agree with that. Bill Hader, is an absolute monster at characters.
Yeah.
Obviously, Bill Murray is too. There's a lot that we're going to say about Bill Murray in terms of Inexclusive exclusives because of this, just how awesome this character was. So do you want to move on to Chevy Chase quick? Also, I don't know. I pronounce things weird. That's what I do. If you've listened to this podcast, you know this. I think I've said Chevy Chase like 7 times so far this podcast.
The all-new Chevy Silverado is all I think of. The Chevy Silverado.
So
it's tomatoes.
Yeah,
Chevy. I don't even know how I'm saying it at this point, but let's do it.
So obviously he's kind of this womanizer, huge, big golfer, very good at golf. I guess he doesn't take Danny under his wing. He kind of
does.
A little bit. He's there for him more than really anyone else. Like he looks down on him less than anyone else, I would say.
Yeah. So he treats him more as a real person while at the same time keeping that distance of like, Danny's like, oh yeah, I don't know how I'm gonna get funding for college, and he's like, oh yeah, that sucks. Like maybe do this. He's not even just like
Smells being like, how would you like to mow my lawn? but Chevy Chase,
the world needs ditch diggers.
The world needs ditch diggers too. Yeah, Chevy Chase is just kind of like, you'll figure it out, or like, why do you even want to go to college? It's not a big deal.
Just this vapid rich person who's going through the motions of just like, I'm good at golf, I'll do whatever I want, like kind of just out there, eccentric but not eccentric at the same time. We assume he's a millionaire. He's kind of to himself because everybody at the club is like, what do you score? Is he good? Like he just plays by himself, takes Danny out, doesn't want the hassle. I feel like his character doesn't want to be associated with the club, while at the same time he's very associated with the club.
Yeah, and I think that just in terms of what his character is, because it's this weird like playboy kind of thing, but not really. Like you're supposed to like him as opposed to dislike him in terms of being a playboy kind of dude, and I think that it is just because of his relationship with Danny's character. I think that in terms of the way we like him is because he doesn't look at the caddies as he's like bigger than
servants,
them. But when he looks at like that Judge Smails, like when he looks at people that are in positions of power, so maybe he's just a little anti-establishment, and you know he doesn't buy into that whole thing. Which when you think of rich people, you generally would assume that they buy into that. So maybe that's why we like his character.
I was a caddy, and I was a caddy for 3 years. And I did what Danny did. And there are definitely people who are more willing to talk to you, genuinely invested in like, I'll talk to this guy. Like, he's here. He's a person. Let's have a conversation.
Yeah.
Oh, where are you going to school? Like, what are you thinking? Blah, blah, blah. Like, you know, the general conversation of like treating this person as a human being. And then there's the guys who don't want you to say a word whatsoever and treat you as if you are a golf cart and you are there to service them, don't say a word, and tip you almost nothing. So I've seen both perspectives, and I gotta say this movie hits on that perfectly, because there are scumbags who play golf, go out. Their bags weigh 96 pounds. They literally will treat you like nothing. And I don't know what I swear to God, people will put rocks in their bags as personal torment.
It's a line from here.
Yeah. Like, what do you have here? I love that, because it's almost like Rodney Dangerfield's bag is what some people have, and they don't have all the amenities. They don't have the radio in it. They don't have anything.
Beer.
They just put beers in it, and it's like, hey, guy, you could buy those on the course.
No, I was saying, you remember Rodney Dangerfield's bag? He has a tap. Yeah, you know what's funny, by the way? I kind of always forget, because it was a short-lived job, and then I moved on to a new one. It was like a quick summer job. I was Bill Murray. I was not a greenskeeper, but I was like a landscaping person for a little on a golf course. That's the only golf course job I had. But we have the caddy over here, the Bill Murray over here. But yeah, I think in terms of Chevy Chase's character, it kind of is perfect. It's this weird thing about him. Back in the day, he was this kind of like suave guy. But in terms of like, he's not unattainable. He's grounded in a way. It's very charming. He's a charming guy. And that's why I think, and again, we'll probably get into it within exclusives, but some people don't get along with him too well.
Yeah.
Meaning Bill Murray.
He's very agreeable, but also stern. And I feel like I don't know. It's just a great all-around character to have because he bounces off every single other character in the movie so well. Yeah. Where it's like he's contentious to other people, but also very agreeable and just it's like the cool guy who everybody wants to buddy up with. But it's just like you got to have that glue because I feel like every other character is in their own world, and Chevy Chase plays this glue guy for everybody to come together.
A little more grounded, he's a little less of. Yeah, I guess he is grounded enough that you would call him like the straight man, like everyone else is like really
like the
eccentric.
Psychotic straight man, like the no, like the blindfold, be the ball. Like, I can't hit. I mean,
and that's
talking.
that's just the characters that he was playing. That's the character that he is, which it's helpful because he really knows that character and he really improv'd a lot. Again, we'll talk about it in exclusives.
Get into it,
but. Let's just wrap it up here. We'll talk Rodney Dangerfield really quick because Rodney Dangerfield is a very interesting character because this kind of earned him the respect of Hollywood, of moviegoers, and that was his old thing. He was always used to say, "I don't get no respect." He's always talking about respect, and I think this was, and we recommended this a while ago in the Comedy Store documentary. Rodney Dangerfield ripped on stage. Apparently, was. I
would love to see
crazy stand-up. Yeah, like just so good, but didn't really no one really took him seriously. No one gave him the respect. That's why he's like, oh, I get no respect. So he decided to open up his own comedy club, but this is this is his thing to me at least.
This is where he shines. And I feel like this brought him to light and helped him a ton. But I feel like it was in the 80s, it was such a weird climate, or I mean everything for stand-up was so, because you don't have what you have now with social media promoting international tours, cross US tours. You don't have that kind of exposure, and you got to get your name out there, and if you're not killing everywhere and you're killing kind of locally, then you're not going to get out there and get out in the world. And this was his moment to just show the world his chops, which I'm bringing it back to 80s with that term,
chops,
but he's show him the chops. But he was hilarious.
Chops, I mean, that's what's interesting to me too, is that he is hilarious, but he's also such a unique character. He's kind of like Andrew Dice Clay. So him, and it was actually, I think, similar times. I think that they both got notoriety around the same time, but him and Dice, they're both such specific people, and normally we reward uniqueness. Normally, that's what we look for, actually. You can't just be a very average person as long as you're funny. Normally, we reward a Rodney Dangerfield type. Maybe it wasn't so much back then. Maybe that's not what they were looking for, because that's the thing with Rodney Dangerfield's character is you might not have met anyone like him in your life, but you know the kind of person he is. It's just this weird, it's just the Rodney Dangerfield type.
Yeah, just eccentric, outgoing, hey, see, just gonna say whatever he wants and then just to walk it back, walk it in. I mean, you'll talk, I think it's one of our lines, but just the stuff he says and then walks it back just makes everybody like him, but is also a complete psychopath at the same time.
He's an absolute piece of garbage, but also super likable. Just says that the food is low-grade dog food or something, and everyone's just laughing. He's just ripping the whole time.
You still want to be his friend. He's the guy that shits on everybody, and you don't want to be on his bad side. You want to get on his good side so you can laugh with him and not laugh, be the target.
He is someone you definitely want to be in his crew. So I feel like someone would be like, you really hang out with that guy? But he is what he is.
I feel like his crowd work was probably unbelievable, because I can see him just ripping people to shreds.
I bet.
Absolutely just destroying people for fun, and him being I'm just kidding, and then keep going and just destroy them.
Yeah.
But his character is so great. Just number one, the clothing that he wears. I love that he's so anti-Bushwood, and there's no gambling at Bushwood and I never slice. And just that's how you intro his character, just throwing in $100 bets. It ends up he forces them essentially to bet 80 grand by the end, just going completely crazy with it. He just defies every club rule, goes against the establishment. I love it. I love that he was just completely in, you think of 80s ski gear and you think of that neon and everything. He's wearing it to golf. And
golfing in it. And he's so rich, he can just do what he wants. Gotta love his character.
everybody else is ripping those old, like, kind of balloon golf pants. You know what I'm talking about? Like those. Yeah. Yeah, and
everything's
he's just
so stuck up, and then he comes in and shakes it up. He's a disruptor. That's what he is.
Love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think that we can go on. I mean, I could say he's my favorite character because he is so unique. I mean, Murray gives him a run for his money. I think that would just be chalk, honestly. So we avoid chalk. Yeah. I guess picking Dangerfield probably would be, but I'm gonna have to. Like,
I mean, down to his putter where he's got that like like thing where it aims for him.
It's like a telescope. Yeah.
Yeah. Just that weird ass like thing. And it's so ahead of its time. If they had that now, I would buy it in a heartbeat. If I could putt like that, for sure.
The funny thing is that my fiance was like, she knows nothing about golf. And she was like, is that real? Like, do those exist? I was like, no, it's just a silly movie.
I would buy that in a second. Yeah, it was ahead of its time, though, the technology. Yeah, just slightly. They made it. Like, everyone on tour is just using that to putt. Just like, and that's the 9th birdie of the day for just my favorite characters we haven't talked about yet.
Yep.
And it's just favorite because he gets shat on the whole time. And I love it. And he's just this like, he doesn't have many lines, but it's Spaulding just because of everything that he, like every scene he's in it for a reason and they just shit on him the whole time.
To be shit on. That's why he doesn't have that many lines.
I want a hamburger, no a cheeseburger. I want a hot dog. You'll get nothing and like it. Just literally.
He is the product of a lot of good lines, but they're not his.
Yeah, exactly. He is the butt of every joke and it's perfect. Like I bet you 100 he eats it. Like just eats the booger. He's just that kid who's brought up on wealth and doesn't know how to act at all.
Yeah.
But it just thinks, I don't know. I mean, he's just the perfect, like, wealthy kid who just gets shit on because he really knows nothing about the world and just is there and just soaking in the wealth. Supposed to get your foot off the boat.
Yeah. He's a foil. Like,
so
I don't know if that's a real term, but I'm going to say it.
And my favorite scene with Spaulding get your foot off the boat is the boat scene when Rodney Dangerfield's ripping his like 50-foot yacht around, just like crashes into that little ass dinghy.
That's such great 80s comedy to me. That just Rodney Dangerfield like, whoa, like this boat's going, everyone's like freaking out, just causing anarchy. That was a fun scene.
Dude, filming that was probably insanity. Like, just ripping that yacht around, even if they filmed it with a toy or whatever, however they filmed it.
I don't know how they filmed it, but yeah.
Crazy.
I was thinking that too.
Yeah. Scale model.
Yeah. Mine is going to be, it's chalk, but we're going to take Bill Murray doing the Masters thing, Augusta boy, you know, the Cinderella boy here at Augusta. I just think in terms of what you think about when you think Caddyshack, I think of that scene.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, that's his scene where he's just ripping the plants. Just just
letting the flowers have it. Yeah.
Yeah. And you can't film that scene too many times because there's only so many of those plants.
Oh, we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Inexclusive exclusives.
Hey, we'll get there. But you want to jump into lines? For me, this is a line that gets said probably, it has to do with characters that probably get mentioned once a week in my house, and it's the Havocamps. Where they're just the old people on the course just fucking around, just hitting golf balls 2 feet every time caddies haven't had enough of it. And it's Mrs. Havocamp. She just hits the ball in the water and just goes, wee. And her husband just goes, that's a peach, hun. And then he just lines up for a shot, hits it like 10 feet, goes, oh, Dolly, I'm hot today. It's so good. Like, just that one little snippet just is so great.
That in both of our, we were talking about this before we started recording, but in both of our households growing up, there are a lot of those little ones that maybe people wouldn't really think of, but that's a peach, hun. That's a good one.
I would hit like a bad shot when I was playing, and my dad would just be like, Mrs. Havocamp. Just like his shitty shot. Mrs. Havocamp, come on. Mrs. Havocamp. Like, just keep going.
I think my all-time favorite, it would be that. It would be during when Bill Murray has someone up against the thing, or like up against the wall with a pitchfork, and he's doing his long thing about how he was caddying for the Dalai Lama, the Dalai Lama, as he says. I like at the end he goes, and I say, hey, Llama, hey, how about a little something, for the effort? And he says, oh, there won't be any money, but when you die on your deathbed, you will receive total consciousness. So I got that going for me, which is nice. It's just that whole long thing. Inexclusive exclusives. Got to say it. Stick around for it. We'll talk about that too.
My next one is when he's in like the first scene. You see there's like 20 kids that really don't reappear in the rest of the movie at all.
Yeah.
And Danny's dad is sitting at the breakfast table with the kid. He goes, honey, who is this? And she just goes, that's your nephew. Like, you don't even know who's in your house.
Yeah. It's something that there's no reason that they had to introduce the fact that they have such a big family. Like, does not come up at all for the rest of the movie.
Like, not one more time.
It's just like an intro scene. That's,
I think
stuff.
it's solely for the purpose of, put it in the college fund jar. That's it. Yeah. That's the only reason that scene's in there, and then go from there.
It'd have been fine if there were 19 less kids in there, but whatever. Yeah. I'm not Harold Ramis. And so my next one is, and this is the last one. It's a Dangerfield line. I'm not going to do it in the Dangerfield voice, although I want to. It's, this is the worst looking hat I ever saw. What would you buy a hat like this? I bet you get a free bowl of soup, huh? And then he sees Judge wearing it. He goes, "Oh, looks good on you, though."
Yes, it's a horrible hat.
Oh, it's a bad hat.
It's like the worst hat ever.
Absolutely.
But it's the most. It's a hat you'd think Dangerfield would buy for himself, though. Like, it's that kind of colorful hat.
Wore. Yeah. We'll move on to Inexclusive exclusives here. I talked about it long enough. We'll get in these facts here.
Let's rip it.
So the movie was actually inspired by Bill Murray's brother, Brian, who wrote the movie, and his memories of working as a caddy on a golf course. And Bill Murray and Harold Ramis were actually caddies when they were teenagers as well. So there was a lot of knowledge bank to pull from. There were a lot of stories that they worked in. And as we mentioned before, just gotta make it very known that this production is very notorious for being, I guess, fun, if you want to look at it that way. It's pretty famous for the amount of drug use which happened, and a supporting actor, Peter Burkrot, described cocaine as the fuel that kept the film running. So,
well, it was the 80s. You could essentially say that Escobar filmed this movie in part.
Yeah, he funded it in part. He was a co-producer.
And they said that, so after filming wrapped up each day, everybody would go and party at night. And that started taking its toll because everybody would just start showing up late to filming. And that just caused so many delays and delayed shooting during the day and the next day, and delayed it hours at a time. So the film was pretty behind in general, just because everybody would go out at night and just party. Yeah. Which seems like, pretty great, but not so great if you're making $1 million movie.
Yeah, it seems a little stressful.
Yeah, fun, but also checks and balances. Yeah. And they said the director's cut is over 4.5 hours long, which, for movies that were more recent, we've talked about this for like Judd movies and everything like that, where they keep rolling, but Harold Ramis thought the jokes were so funny and he didn't want to cut any from the film. So eventually they had to cut it down to the hour 38 version that they had, but it was 4.5 hours long. And
this is not The Irishman.
No, I want to see the 4.5 hour version though. I absolutely want to see it.
I would love to see that, because it's probably just anarchy on set.
Yeah, look, I think that Judd and I think that everybody before him, if there's a 4.5 hour long comedy and it's one of these classics, just release it. Just release it. Yeah. What's going to happen?
I think that they definitely could. And I
put
think
it up for rent.
We would watch it. I'd pay for that for sure.
People watch the Snyder cut, and you're saying that you wouldn't watch 4.5 hours long of like Caddyshack?
Just these people just at the top of their game.
That is our Snyder cut. We need the Ramis cut.
Yeah, there's no doubt that all of them were so good and they were making the movie better, but they kind of did step on some toes, because all of the improv, some of the actors weren't really used to it, because, in a Judd movie, we expect that. Back then, it wasn't the norm, I don't think. So it kind of created a weird environment. So Ted Knight, who is apparently like a really good person, like notoriously good person, he got fed up with it a lot, and it's almost bad for him, because Bill Murray, Chevy Chase's, and Rodney Dangerfield's roles were supposed to basically be cameos, but their improving and just their lines that they were producing obviously worked them into the movies a lot more, and they became like seminal characters. So some of the more real actors' roles were actually reduced.
It worked out pretty well, and I feel like that would have been highlighted in the 4.5-hour version too. Maybe they would have had more of a shot. Yeah.
Maybe they should be tweeting, release the Snyder Cut.
Release the Ramis Cut. 50-year
yeah.
anniversary, release the Ramis Cut. Call it out.
So, but speaking of improv, we were talking about him a lot. I made you guys wait. Bill Murray actually improvised the whole Cinderella story scene, basically. The scene just relied on 2 lines of stage direction. So Harold Ramis just told Bill Murray, just act as a child. And he was just hitting flowers with like a grass whip while fantasizing aloud about winning the Masters tournament. And then they just decided to do it. Bill Murray was actually only on production for 6 days, and all of his dialogue was basically improv.
Yeah, and on top of that, he improvised the scene with Peter Berknott where Carl is holding the pitchfork to his throat, and it was all improv, and Berknott said that it was basically like he was scared during that scene because the pitchfork was real and he didn't really know what was going on. So he's just pretty nervous during the whole thing because Bill Murray's just holding a pitchfork up to him. I mean, I would be nervous too.
Yeah, it's Bill Murray.
And then another scene that was kind of just added in because the director Ramis realized that Chevy Chase and Bill Murray didn't have a scene together and they didn't really get along on SNL together really well. But he realized they didn't have a scene together. So those 3 went out to lunch together, created the scene where Ty Webb's golf ball crashes into Bill Murray's shack, and they go off from there. But it really wasn't in the original script. They had to go out, discuss it, and write it together for them to actually appear in a scene. And since then, it's the only movie that Chevy Chase and Bill Murray have appeared in together.
Yeah, so I think that they didn't necessarily, I don't think it was by accident that they didn't have scenes together, because they did have a big spat on Saturday Night Live. They don't get along pretty famously, so
noted as not getting along.
Yeah, they were professional, filmed that scene. It was fantastic. That's one of the best just little scenes in there.
Yeah,
and for true comedy fans, you want to see those 2 interact, and I'm glad that they were able to kind of let bygones be bygones there.
It's a shame they didn't get along because there could have been magic there. If they had done like a few movies together, I feel like there could have been, because Bill Murray and Chevy Chase working against each other but working together is probably awesome. Like for them to be in a movie together.
They both have strong personalities though. So,
to say the least.
Yeah. So obviously, at the end, we have Bill Murray blowing up the whole golf course. So it was filmed on a real golf course, and obviously the golf course didn't want their course to just have a huge explosion, even if it was controlled or whatever. So they actually just built a big hill, which you can see. Like, it's just a hill in the middle of the golf course that they blew up. But the pyrotechnic people used too many explosives, so it completely destroyed that hill, and planes flying by thought that a plane crashed. So they actually reported a plane crash just because of this movie.
Imagine getting that call, people rolling up. It's like, no, just people doing... Yeah. Just a million people on set doing blow. Like, no, we just blew up a giant hill. It's all good.
Just a bunch of blow-fueled explosives.
God.
Everyone's
the panic,
safe. We're good.
The panic on that set when they probably saw the fire trucks and the cops all rolling up. They were like, what did we do? What did we do? Like,
just swallowing insane amounts of drugs.
Guys, no plane, just a hill, just a hill.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well.
So the opening song, I'm All Right, Kenny Loggins. That one.
Great song.
Yeah, very good song. When you hear it, you think Caddyshack. So Harold Ramis actually wanted Pink Floyd. He wanted Pink Floyd to be the band, but they were filming The Wall, like the movie, and they didn't have enough time to devote to this movie. So they ended up just going with Kenny Loggins. It ended up being great, though. As a huge Pink Floyd fan, I could not really imagine the "I'm All Right" song fits the bill with Caddyshack. It feels so much more normal. I couldn't imagine Pink Floyd, honestly.
Just to the tone of like the lunatic is in the ground, but I'm all right. Like, it's not the same.
It'd be weird.
It wouldn't be the same. Weird. It would just be a different vibe, especially with them doing The Wall, being in that mindset, like, I don't think it would have been the same. And I don't think it would have given that same vibe that we get from just the upbeat, like, I'm not going to sing because it would be horrifying. But
what I will say, back in the day, they used to be a little more upbeat in their music, a little more acoustic guitar. So if you want to look up the song Free 4, that's more around that time period.
Yeah,
I can see that, but no, I don't think Pink Floyd would have necessarily worked in this movie.
Yeah, I think we won out with Kenny Loggins doing it. I think
yeah.
41 years down the line, we can come to terms with Kenny Loggins being the better choice.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to Tommy Boy here.
Let's do it.
15 years later, we have...
Fast forward.
Yeah, we have another crop of SNL stars. We have Chris Farley, gone too soon, and David Spade, and their big buddy movie. A lot of other things that go into it. We're talking American Business leaving in a way, but also it's Tommy Boy, so it's mainly just a goofy comedy. This is a Chris Farley showcase.
It's just physical comedy, Chris Farley. It's all Chris Farley, and then you get a lot of David Spade being David Spade with just the perfect amount of snarkiness and dickishness that you need from him. As much
as this is like a showcase for Chris Farley's amazing physical comedy and just his like childlike innocence that we love, it also is so impressive just seeing David Spade interact with him because he is so perfect with Chris Farley. Like, I don't think anyone could play the role that he did, even if he doesn't get the shine, because Farley is just this larger than life person.
I will say, like, it's a shame that Chris Farley went when he did. Yeah. Because, like, him, Adam Sandler, David Spade, they all would have made magic together over these past like 25, 30 years. And it would have been incredible to see. And like seeing how Farley would have matured or not matured and just going and seeing how he would have worked with David Spade throughout. Would he have been in Grown Ups? Like that would have been fucking awesome. And just seeing all of that, just, you know, it's gone too soon, crazy, but we have this. We have Tommy Boy to look at and just say it's one of the greats, and we're thankful to have it because it just gave us the Chris Farley that we needed outside of SNL. And we'll talk a little bit about his SNL stuff after this, but I mean,
we'll do our snake draft of Farley sketches. That is something I think in this movie I assumed that it was older than it was, and I was wondering why. And I think it's because Chris Farley, he's kind of this enigmatic character. We didn't have him growing up. Like what we had was the best ofs. What we had was the Tommy Boys to look back on. Tommy Boy, Black Sheep. So I did grow up a huge Chris Farley fan, but it was after he'd passed, obviously. So I think it's kind of like he's this larger than life person. It's like a layer of mystery that kind of gets added on to him because he got taken too soon, you know? Yeah. But we are like, whenever I see, like, if I see Adam Sandler doing the Chris Farley song, it hits me in the heart, man. Like I technically did grow up with him because I was watching the best of Chris Farley SNL sketches, just like I did like Dana Carvey, Will Ferrell. But for some reason, Chris Farley, he's just this, and I think it's the childlike innocence that he has, which makes it very confusing to enjoy because the physical comedy and the energy that he gave out, we know how he got that. We know how he channeled that. And it's not necessarily a great thing to applaud.
No, it's definitely not. But like I think it's also like we saw the people who were in his class releasing movies and everything like that, and we took it as like, oh, we're growing up with them, where we didn't necessarily grow up with Chris Farley, so we almost thought of him as being older. Like in that sense of like, oh, he was before them a little bit, or like he worked with them but not because he wasn't there releasing. Like had he been in the earlier Sandler movies that we grew up with or any of those movies, like we wouldn't have thought of him in that way of this being an older movie than it was. And I mean, it sucks, but it's also like it gives us that perspective now to look back and be like, holy shit, he did some incredible things right with them. Like it just
it's so weird thinking that you think of him as the person that they looked up to. You think of him as the older person. Exactly. I think it's because he was so great. And then so obviously we touched on it. wherever you fall on it, I think he fell victim to addiction, and that's very sad. We'll look past that. We all know where he got the energy. Let's just focus on what it was, because we are big Farley fans. We are huge Farley fans, and we love that it gave us Tommy Boy. So Tommy Boy, though, did not get a great critic response, which is good. I love it. I love seeing this. So we got a 42% critic and a 90% audience, which means that's how you know it's an awesome movie. That's how you know it's just an awesome movie.
Pisses the critics off and makes the audience wish they saw more. And the one thing I think of when I see this stuff is it doesn't necessarily pertain, but I always think of it because when some old British dude was interviewing Tyler, the Creator, and he's like, why do you do this? And it's like, to piss off old white people like you. Yeah. I think of that when I see these shitty critic scores and I see the great audience scores. It's like, not doing it to piss off the critics, but it's just like, fuck you almost. Like, who cares what you think? People love this.
Which is why it's funny. We almost like, I do think it's interesting, and I think it's something that people do wonder about in terms of when we do Rotten Tomato scores. And we always say it doesn't really matter. But then, like, hey, you get a Big Sick, it has a 98%. That obviously means something to the movie. This means something quite the opposite, which is you're just going to have fun with it as long as you can get out of your own way and don't be such a pretentious asshole. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm talking. There's this one critic that, like, when we were looking at facts, it was like, oh, it's on his most hated list. Hey, buddy, it's not for you. Get over yourself. Like,
dude, this isn't the Lighthouse.
We're anti-critic here. We're obviously we're under film reviews. If you've listened to this podcast or you're listening now, you're not getting a normal film review. Obviously, we're not film review people.
No, we are not film reviewers in the sense of like we're grading it. We're not looking at it in a critique kind of way. We're looking at we're admiring it. We're looking at it in like a fond delight. We're looking at the positives, and screw you if you look at the negatives, because they're comedies, man. Yeah, get over it.
Yeah. So I mean, we have a director, we have Peter Siegel, and then Bonnie Turner and Terry Turner. They are fantastic screenwriters. They've done some great stuff. Obviously, we have Chris Farley as Tommy. We have David Spade as Richard. Brian Dennehy. I'm just rolling with that. Let's say that's the way to pronounce it.
I think it is. I agree with you.
Dad, Big Tom. Bo Derek plays Beverly. Rob Lowe goes uncredited, which we will also talk about. He plays Paul. Dan Aykroyd plays Ray Zielinski, and then Julie Warner plays Tommy's love interest, Michelle Brock. So I think we basically said what we needed to about Tommy and Richard, about David Spade and Chris Farley. That's what we were going to talk about first. Something I did want to ask you about, though, Tommy and Michelle, that love interest. I liked it. I actually did like that B plot because, I like a good romance B plot, but it was weird because it was very sudden. Like they met again and then all of a sudden they were dating. I feel like it was not explained well at all.
How did this happen? Like she was the head of shipping and then he just comes back. He's like, well, how good to see you. Yeah. Like, and then they're just dating and it doesn't make any sense. Like, I guess she was very impressed by the orders he got in and like is just I'm enthralled with this dude. I need to date him kind of thing. Yeah. Unless there was a lot skipped over where they had these conversations on the phone, like he called her from the payphones, everything like that.
No, even before that though, it was kind of like they re-met because they knew each other before, but then they like, and then it didn't seem like it was a conversation like, hey, let's start dating. It was just like, we're dating now. Which we were literally just talking about how we don't look at the. That's what I'm saying. This isn't a negative.
Roger Ebert, get over it.
It just kind of makes me laugh. Like it's one of those things. It's funny because then you're just along for the ride. That's another thing. It's fine. It's fine.
I'm happy for him.
They're in a relationship. Yeah, be happy for him. This is good for him.
I'm happy that he got what he's like. He was just happy. He graduated college after 7-8 years. Just comes out, gets a girlfriend. We're all happy for him, and he was shooting above his pay grade with that too. So. Yeah, like she was just great. Happy for the dude. She was great for him. I know, shade under a decade, but I think it was good. I think he needed that kind of extra relationship because if it was just him and Spade the whole time, I think it would have been a little not repetitive, but almost just like there needs to be a little bit extra in there.
Yep, exactly. So I mean, obviously, then you rely on the romance B plot, which I mean, I just really liked it. I liked the when they're out there on the sailboat and they're having those conversations.
I love that he like sinks the sailboat a little bit when he sits on one side. I think that was such a stupid bit, but it was also just like when they're yelling at the kids, just everything that has to do with that. Hey, fatso! And I love when she gets up and goes, I know where you live.
Yeah, she freaks out at him.
I know where you sleep.
Yeah, you mentioned the fat thing. There is a lot of, hey, look at him, he's fat humor. Like, probably
not great for self-esteem, I don't think.
No, I mean, I guess we could go that way. I was almost gonna say like maybe there's one too many. Like we kind of get it, but you know, that's the other thing about this movie is that I thought that Caddyshack feels like it was made more recently than it was. Tommy Boy seems like it was made kind of longer ago because it has this fun kind of humor. Like it's actually Billy Madison got released 2 months before it. It does remind me a lot of Billy Madison, so maybe I do take that back. Like it's just kind of, it's fun. It's kind of, we said this a lot during Billy Madison. Get over yourself and go watch this fun movie, and you don't have to be like just it's a turn your mind off. It's a turn your mind off and enjoy. But it has that 95 humor to it, and you add the physical element to Chris Farley. You get a lot of bits throughout.
Very bit heavy. Very bit heavy. Like the deer that they hit.
That's what I was going to say.
Incredible. But that was an incredible bit that they carried out twice. It's like they're crying over it and then it wakes up in the back. Like, I mean, just ripping through the car. The car itself was an ongoing bit of like, how much can we destroy this car? And I don't know. I think it was a little bit, I haven't seen it in a while, but it was a little bit of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles where they're going in this destroyed car, seeing how much they could destroy it and go through the road trip. But I think it was great because they, like, Chris Farley and David Spade are so perfect for riding around and just destroying this car because it's Chris Farley and it's like it's gonna be destroyed throughout. Like, I just love that it was continuously getting destroyed and he was like, I don't know what happened. Just
That's what I love about it, though, because especially, obviously, it's a buddy movie, it's a road trip movie, but you do need those bits throughout. So it's the continuous ones are great. I mean, my favorite, one of my favorite ones is definitely the deer. They start freaking out, it wakes up, they see it in the rear view mirror. I mean, fat guy in a little coat. So call that a bit, like, fantastic.
Say that in my house a ton too. Like this movie is quoted in my house a ton where it's just like if a jacket's too small or anything, it's just like fat guy in a little coat. Just every time. I mean, because it's so great. I mean, how can you not quote it? No, I mean, everything from this movie is the bits are. The good thing about the bits is they're not oversaturating you with bits. It's
there's more of like a narrative.
Yeah, and the bits are standalone and like you can quote them individually and you know where it's from. So it's like there's a specific bit that you love and you'll probably love the movie itself, or if you quote one, like you just love the whole movie kind of thing. It works very well because some movies, as we talked about, are a little too bit heavy. They're almost like a compilation. It's almost like an I think you should leave with a plot. Yeah. And
so like I think if we compare these two movies, I don't think that I wouldn't call Caddyshack bit heavy, but I would say like when we're talking about how bit heavy this one is, but it holds such a narrative throughout, like it holds an actual story.
There's a goal.
So it doesn't it doesn't seem like there are like when there is a bit, it doesn't seem like it's just thrown in randomly. Whereas like when you have the scene with Bill Murray and Chevy Chase, that one's just kind of inserted in there, which is fine. Like, I think that's probably also the 4.5 hours of screen time getting broken down. I think that you probably have a few disconjointed scenes in there. I don't think that's the case in Tommy Boy. I think that they're sprinkled really well in throughout.
It does work really well, and everything's kind of fluid. It's like there's a purpose to the bits. It's not just here's one, here's another one. You know, it works very well, and altogether, I think. Like it's not an SNL episode. It's a legitimate movie with a legitimate plot, and the critics didn't see that, but we do, and the audience clearly does. Like it came
audience
together.
Clearly does, yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to go into your favorites?
Sure.
Do you have anything you want to end off on?
No, I'm good. We have to establish, though, are we doing chalk here? I mean,
we can't not do chalk. There's not enough characters to not do chalk.
That's exactly how I'm thinking.
Yeah.
You know what, though? I'll try to be unique here. Yeah, I'll try to be. I'm going to go Big Tom. I mean, he's not in the movie for too long, but when he is, you love him because you love Chris Farley and he loves Chris Farley. So you're like, all right, I like this guy. But he is hilarious throughout it. He is a very fun character too, like energetic. The wedding scene is awesome. Unfortunately,
they just break into song and dance.
Yeah.
Another bit, but a great bit.
Oh, I love it. That's up my alley for sure.
Oh, yeah. It was like, come on up here. Of course okay. I'll come. Yeah, okay. But I'm going to go mega chalk. I'm going to go Chris Farley because one of us had to. You have to. That needs no explanation.
No.
If you don't know why, watch the movie again. You'll understand.
Right.
Chris Farley. But I'm going to jump into my favorite because it's with Chris Farley, and it's got to be my favorite scene is the bank robbery where he just walks in, everybody, this will be quick. And the cops just toss the guns over to him.
I love that so much. This will only take a second.
Yeah, the cops literally roll the guns, and then the interview is like, he came in from the back and hit me over the head with a hammer several times, and I finally gave him my gun. The guy's like perfectly fine.
Yeah.
And they do it again with the vest. I mean, that altogether was so great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, that is the best scene. I'll concede to that for sure. It is hilarious. When he screams out, then everyone starts freaking out.
It must have been another fat guy with a little head. Is my head little?
Is my head little? Mine is going to be, it's definitely a heavy Farley scene, and the reason that I love it. But when he makes his first quote unquote sale to the waitress, and he's like just basically venting out how he can't actually do a sale, and he's just freaking out that he realized that he just cares that much about food that he's able to sell this waitress, but it's just him like screaming and this whole audience is seeing, and it's just it's such a great showcase of what Farley was able to do. I just love that.
Just going off, and at the same time David Spade is just going like, do I always have to de-poop these shrimp? Like, just completely separate. He's going off about deveining the shrimp the whole
could
time.
Not care less about what Farley's doing.
Yeah. Just, it's so gross. This one needs a septic tank. That was so good. But I'm going to jump into lines here because, like, I don't think any are from our favorite scenes, but mine is from the stock meeting, or the board meeting with just this random old woman who's in there. And it has nothing to do with anything that's going on. And they're talking about like how the town would get destroyed or whatever. And she just goes, that's when the whores come in. And she just goes, whores running around with their little behinds shaking for the men folk. Yep. Like, what year are you in?
That's when the guy, I think her husband or something is like, I visited one whorehouse or something.
Yeah,
like,
never heard the end of it.
Yeah. It's such a weird, specific thing to throw in.
One whorehouse in 42. I've never heard the end of it.
Yeah.
What?
I actually did already mention my first one, but it's when Tommy says, did you hear I finally graduated? Tommy's meeting Richard again for like the first time in the movie, and he said, did you hear I finally graduated? He said, yeah, just a shade under a decade too. All right. You know, a lot of people go to college for 7 years. He says, I know, they're called doctors. I don't know why that cracked me up.
It's the David Spade sarcasm hitting right off the bat.
That's so great David Spade one right there.
Yeah. My next one is another just random like one-liner, just in and out. Is one the first client he sells to. It's like his wife goes, "Look at this human bomb on the news," and he goes, "Oh yeah, I buy brake pads off him. I thought we were watching cartoons," and just flips it back to like everybody's changing the channel on him with a bomb strapped to his chest.
No one cares. Mine is actually from my favorite scene. We said there might not be, but it's when he's just like, oh, I killed it. I killed my sale. And that's when I blow it. And then he just goes, That's why people like us got to forge ahead, Helen. Am I right? He's like doing this crazy thing about himself and then just loops her in with it too. He's like, that's why people like us got to forge ahead. Like, what are you talking about, man? No.
Yeah, like, what did we have to do with one another at all?
Yeah, exactly. He says we're both in sales. She's a waitress. All right, we'll go into exclusives here. And we mentioned it did come out 2 months after Billy Madison, actually. So it actually had to change its name because of Billy Madison. So they were both in pre-production. And the first title was just, it seems so weird. It was supposed to be called Billy the Third, a Midwestern. But they didn't want 2 SNL movies coming out at around the same time with the name Billy in it. So they called it Tommy Boy, which I think is... I hope that they would have changed that title somewhere along there anyways, because I would not want to be talking about Billy the Third, a Midwestern.
That was for sure a working title. And when I say working title, I mean they probably just wrote it down and were like, we need to change this immediately because it's horrible.
Yeah, that's just not a good title name.
Billy the Third, a Western, horrifying.
Not happening. Chris Farley and David Spade we've talked about it a bunch, but they were in SNL. They were full time. And it was just the craziest thing to film, apparently, because they had to do it while they were currently filming in New York for SNL, and they were filming Tommy Boy in Toronto. So they were just going back and forth on this crazy schedule. It seems exhausting.
That seems horrifying. Like plane after plane after plane, going, coming back, especially with SNL hours, like when you're working all week till like 3 a.m. writing stuff. And then, I mean, that sounds absurd.
Yeah.
But it makes sense for this next one because, like, Rob Lowe originally had the David Spade role. Mm-hmm. And basically the original story by Lorne Michaels envisioned that Rob Lowe would be, like, beside Farley's character and his real primary screen partner. But after David Spade was brought on board as the second, Rob Lowe was kind of demoted to that villainous Farley enemy role, like the accident-prone stepbrother kind of weird role, which he did great in. But he was not credited for his appearance in the movie. And even after David Spade was hired and he got demoted partially, he never got the credit because he was doing an ABC miniseries at the time for Stephen King's The Stand. And by contract, he couldn't get his name on that movie. So he had to keep his name out of the movie entirely. And people didn't notice for 15 years. And Rob Lowe has made jokes like the public didn't even notice this for 15 years, which is a little odd because like probably at the same time, Rob Lowe is an insanely big star. He's on the bus with the Lakers every other week. Like if he's in something, his name's going to be in it. Yeah. And it's weird that people didn't even notice.
Yeah, so that his name did it as a favor if he's not going to get uncredited. It's weird thinking about someone else other than David Spade in the role. Like you need David Spade in there. But speaking of Rob Lowe and Farley and Spade actually fought while they were filming. Apparently they were pretty notorious for acting like a married couple, but one actually it got physical a little bit. They got really angry at each other, Chris Farley got angry at David Spade just because he went to dinner with Rob Lowe the night before. So he showed up to set and got really mad and was like, oh, how was dinner with Rob Lowe? And then like stomped on his hand or something. It was like a big fight, and David Spade left the set for the entire day. Like they just could not film that day because there was that big of a spat.
Just a riff.
Yeah.
Spat. We're saying spat a lot. You love the term spat.
I think that it's just because it was written like that.
There was a bit of a spat. There was a bit of a tizzy on set.
A bit of a spat. So Tommy's catchphrase, holy shnikes, that actually came right from the mind of Chris Farley. He used to say it when he was a kid because his parents didn't really like him cursing. So it came through very genuinely when when Tommy was saying holy shnikes.
And that's a little bit of that childlike, the innocence that Chris Farley had on screen where it's like, holy shnikes, it just adds into that character of just not fully maturing until the end. Just him not even cursing still and saying holy shnikes, it just helps it all come together.
Definitely.
Yeah. And Chris Farley actually insisted on doing all of the physical comedy himself, of course, as I'm sure you inferred, because that was kind of his style. And one of the things that set him apart from other comedic actors was his commitment to these roles. So whether it was the SNL skits where he went above and beyond physical comedy wise, or it's these movies, he just goes so far in these bits and it works so well because it comes across like it translates so well for us that we just see it and it's hilarious.
Yeah.
Not many people could do that.
No.
A weird thing, though, that stemmed from this movie. I don't know if you've ever heard of a little film called Shrek.
It's in the Library of Congress.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's just a small
I think that's
film.
The name.
Small animated film called Shrek. Was inspired by the on-screen chemistry shared by Chris Farley and David Spade. But before his death in 1997, Chris Farley was really working hard on Shrek. And after his death, Mike Myers came in and was cast. But a lot of the movie kind of drastically changed because you can't really replace Chris Farley that much.
Yeah.
But one thing you really can see is that Shrek's relationship with Donkey was inspired by Chris Farley and David Spade's relationship in Tommy Boy, which is a pretty crazy thing to look at that movie and then watch Shrek, that kind of really innocent donkey character met with the really snarky, like sarcastic Shrek. They're back and forths. You can see after hearing this, like if you watch Shrek again, you'll see that relationship and you're like, oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and it's so weird knowing that Chris Farley was working on Shrek, and then you realize that it's actually it just didn't know that, and then you're like, oh wait, that's another two SNL people. You have Mike Myers and Eddie Murphy going at it on the screen.
Which is insane to think about because it's probably if Chris Farley was working on it, Chris Farley would have been Shrek.
Oh, yeah.
And Spade would have been Donkey, and it would have been roles completely switched. Like, Shrek would have been the more Donkey-esque character that we saw in the movie, or more of the, like, Donkey being the sarcastic one would have been very, for us having seen the movie, would have been a little bit awkward, but I feel like it would have been gold.
I'm sure it would have worked, but it's just so crazy that happened. But we mentioned this bit before, fat guy in a little coat, absolutely famous. Everyone loves it. And apparently Farley always used to do that with Spade. So while at SNL, they had the same office, so they would always be doing bits with each other. And one of the big recurring ones was Chris Farley putting on a little jacket and doing fat guy in a little coat. So Spade was saying even like he got so fed up with it because he did it so often that he was like, hey, David, turn around, this Chris Farley. And he was like, if it's a fat guy in a little coat, I'm not turning around. He's like, no, it's not. I have a new thing. And then he just did it again. Like, he just loved the fat guy in a little coat bit.
I mean, it's so great. I can just see David Spade getting so pissed at that, though, after a while. Just like, come on, dude. Stop.
Like,
that's my jacket. Like, that's Hugo Boss. Like, can you not? It's Gucci. That's just, please don't stretch it out.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, come on.
So we were talking to Rob Lowe before, and there is a scene with Rob Lowe and Chris Farley when he's trying to bond with his new brother, and they go cow tipping. It's a great scene. That was actually Rob Lowe's idea. So he pitched it to the writing team in pre-production, and it wasn't going to be in there at all. Like, it was just Rob Lowe saying that the cow tipping would be awesome. And it was.
Yeah, and I mean, it was. Chris Farley getting covered in mud, and he's like, that's not mud, bud. Also, something weird and kind of dated the movie was water being at the gas pumps. Is that a thing you've ever seen?
I thought he was spraying gas at him at
so
first.
So did I. I thought he was spraying gas on his shoes. I was like, what is this guy doing?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it was to wash cars.
I mean, odd, but interesting. Bo Derek, who played probably the main antagonist in the movie alongside Rob Lowe, she didn't really have that tough of a job. Not tough, but very long, or I'm not going to phrasing, but despite like her role, she only speaks 13 lines in the entire movie. Yeah. So she has this large presence, but doesn't have many lines.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of odd.
And our last thing, we mentioned it before, but one of the major
it is in here.
Film critics felt very differently about the movie. So you may not or may know him, Roger Ebert, had nothing but disdain for Tommy Boy and put it on his Ebert's Most Hated list, which was compiled in 2005. A little bit of the review was, no one is funny in Tommy Boy. There are no memorable lines. None of the characters are interesting except for the enigmatic figure played by Rob Lowe, who seems to have wandered over from Hamlet. Crazy.
Hey, bud, get lost.
Look, I respect Roger Ebert.
I do, even though I said some mean words from before.
Other movies. Like, if it's not a comedy, I respect your opinion.
I'll say that.
But stay away from these.
If you are a film person and you are breaking down the actual film stuff on a really good drama, sure. Tommy Boy, you don't need to be that negative about it. It's a comedy. It's a fun movie. This guy just, doesn't like having fun, and that's okay.
I know.
Stick to the dramas.
Hey, look, you can watch Casablanca 13 times, but don't come for Tommy Boy.
Never seen it.
Those are fighting words. Neither have I, but I'm sure he has.
I bet he has.
13 times.
Yep. So we'll move on. We have a Chris Farley SNL sketch snake draft. So we picked 6, so it's essentially a top 3, but we're going to do it in a snake draft style. The 6 are, very famously, Matt Foley, motivational speaker. I live in a van down by the river.
Down by the river.
Japanese game show. Colombian decaffeinated coffee crystals, which is like supposed to be a hidden camera commercial.
Hidden camera.
Gets really mad that they duped him.
God. It's 60 seconds long, but it is one of the best things he's ever done.
Yeah. The Gap Girls. It's Farley, Spade, and Sandler. They're dressed up as women. They're like, "Oh, aren't you supposed to be on a diet?" And he's like, "Lay off, I'm starving." he's grabbing like these fries from her. We have Chippendales. Everybody's working for the weekend. Him and Patrick Swayze. He's just going for it. Patrick Swayze looks great. Yep. He is not as good looking as Patrick Swayze, but we love him.
Yeah.
And then we have the Swirsky super fans, the Chicago Bears. The Bears. That's where that comes from. We are doing those 6. Winnie, I'll let you start. I'll let you take number 1.
I was going to let you start. But I will graciously take number 1, and I am 1,000,000,000,000% going Matt Foley, motivational speaker.
Yeah, I mean, you need to. You need to. It's the most iconic. It's one of the most iconic SNL sketches. Also, everyone else in it is just fantastic. Like, and the little lines from that. I think I just dropped one on my fiance. That not like the "I am divorced," but like I think it was. Oh yeah, I heard you're not only using your papers for writing, but for rolling doobies.
It's just all around one of the best SNL sketches of all time. If there's a Hall of Fame, that's in the top 10, if not top 5, and I will go down with that. That and the Dear Sister sketch of like from the Sandberg Justin Timberlake episode of SNL. I think those are top 5.
Okay.
Well, I like the what you say?
We'll do one soon. We'll do all of them. Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah, like the Lonely Island kind of thing. So mine is going to be the Chippendales. It's an all-timer for me. Just seeing Chris Farley dancing like that, shirt off, and Patrick Swayze like he's like. I mean, it's just so funny to me.
The physical comedy. Yeah, he goes all out, and you need that.
We might have mentioned this on another podcast, or maybe just at some point, but. You need Chris Farley. We need another Chris Farley, but the thing is, Chris Farley does need to be heavy set. Like, if there's a skinny person doing what Chris Farley does, I feel like it doesn't work as well. So as much fun as they poke at the big guy humor, however people feel about that, quite honestly, I don't need to concern myself with that. I think it's hilarious, and I think that he thought it was hilarious. So I'm going.
I think that slightly lesser version, not lesser in like what he's done or anything like that, but to a lesser degree is Jack Black. And what Jack Black does for us is incredible. And like, I mean, he's done incredible things, but there's no replacing Chris Farley.
Yeah. I say that, but apparently people say that Chris Farley was just John Belushi. And then like, there's always someone. I'm just saying that like, I feel like we don't value
John Belushi. Gone too soon.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. But I don't think that we value physical comedy anymore. Like, and that's sure. It's just a different time period, but There's just something so special to,
Everybody's all about that sarcastic humor now.
Yeah. Or dark humor, which is fine. That's just like, maybe it'll come back around, maybe at some point, but I could see it getting, especially just in terms of how everyone has an opinion now, everyone's online. Yeah. I could see it being easily like, this is dumb. Who knows?
Yeah. Number 3, for me, I'm going Colombian decaffeinated coffee crystals, and that's not even a question. Because I was dying laughing at it before, and you were watching it before we recorded, and I heard the audio and I started dying again. It's
so funny.
Did you know that you're drinking decaffeinated Colombian decaffeinated coffee crystals? What?
He just looks at the guy like,
what? It just goes full on rage. Flips the table. It's incredible.
So funny. All right, at 4, I'm gonna take, and I think this is a steal at 4. I'm taking the super fans. We're taking Da Bears. I mean, I don't even know if it's his line. I kind of forget, but no, it's not his. But someone starts having a heart attack. He's like, "How many heart attacks is that for you, Bob?" He's like, "That makes about a baker's dozen."
I love it. They start out with, "Any heart attacks this week, boys?" Yeah, a couple.
He's talking about Ditka, and like they're like, oh my goodness, that the Chicago Superfans is just fantastic.
So good. All right, I'm gonna snag at number 5 Japanese game show.
Okay,
it's just crazy absurd. Like, the absurdity of it is Mike Myers. I don't know if he was genuinely speaking. I don't like. There's no way in hell he was ever speaking Japanese.
No.
But he was so committed, and Chris Farley being so committed as well, and them going to the lengths they did. They had this woman like just slicing her hand, and he's sitting there going, "What is this?" And the whole time he's like, "I don't speak Japanese."
There's only one way to do it. They just went for it. Oh, that was fantastic. So that means I take Gap Girls, which I'm fine with. At 6, that's surprising. I mean, it's that one line. It's just so funny. They're like being all girly. It's like, I thought you were on a diet. Then he just goes into, "Lay off me, I'm starving." So funny, because you were waiting for something like that the whole time, and then it just comes out. I'll take it at 6.
I think we both could have separately ranked these, and we got the 3 that we wanted either way. I think if you were like, I don't know if you're in line with that, but I got the 3 I was vying for, and I think you did
Matt
too.
Foley at number 1. I mean,
either one of us was gonna do that. That was not even a question.
Well, we'll see what the people think. Let us know your top 6. Rank them. I mean, also let us know that if there's one you would have put on this list over the others. We think that these are probably the 6, but we'll digress. We'll get Winnie out of here. Again, who knows what we're doing next week? We'll figure something out. We'll let you know.
I think you should leave season 2 dropping soon. And that's one of my favorite shows of all time. We'll talk about that. I don't know if we'll touch on, before it drops, we'll touch on the first season, because that is one of my favorite, honestly, one of my favorite seasons of television I've ever seen in my life.
Absolutely.
And Tim Robinson is a genius.
Very
so we'll go.
Quirky, fun sketch comedy. So if you haven't checked it out, start checking that out. It's a series. I mean, it doesn't take that long to watch. But if you are slacked on, or if you don't have a bunch of time, start watching it. We'll drop something before the season 2 comes out. That won't be next week. Next week we'll probably do another movie, maybe 2. Yeah. But
hey, we'll figure it out.
Until then, I'm Kevin.
I'm Winnie.
And we'll see you at the next episode.
A steering wheel that don't fly off when you're driving.
You want to do another one?
No, that's perfect.
Okay.
I think you should leave season 2.
Bye.
Stinky.